Analyze regulatory changes is compliance software for a specific operational decision. Analyzes incoming regulatory updates to identify key changes and their potential impact on business processes. This video explains what the tool does, why the workflow matters, and how the output becomes useful decision evidence. The problem is that compliance teams often manage this workflow with scattered inputs, inconsistent review rules, and manual interpretation. At quarantadue.ai, every MCP workflow starts from the real tool interface, not from a generic prompt. The goal is simple. Keep the expert in control while the system structures the evidence. Inputs, reasoning, and outputs stay connected in one reviewable flow. Now the results become easier to compare, easier to review, and easier to explain. Analyze regulatory changes narrows that process into a repeatable model so teams can compare cases without rebuilding the logic each time. Analyze regulatory changes starts with a defined input contract. Typical inputs include affected business processes, change severity, implementation deadline, current compliance coverage, and regulatory language complexity. Keeping these fields explicit reduces ambiguity and makes every run easier to audit. The workflow then applies calculate overall impact severity by combining change severity, number of affected processes, and penalty risk exposure with appropriate scaling factors. Estimate full-time equivalents needed by considering affected processes, stakeholder departments, and regulatory language complexity with appropriate weighting factors. Determine implementation urgency level based on remaining days until deadline and the calculated impact score mapping to a discrete 1 to 5 scale. Calculate relative effort needed to close compliance gaps by considering current coverage percentage, change severity, and number of affected processes. And calculate risk-adjusted priority score by combining impact severity, penalty risk exposure, and time pressure from implementation deadline. This keeps the process deterministic, reviewable, and aligned with how compliance teams actually make decisions. Analyze regulatory changes returns structured outputs such as priority score, impact severity, implementation urgency, resource requirement, and impact versus priority correlation. These outputs are designed to support review, reporting, comparison, and follow-up actions. The value of analyzed regulatory changes is not just automation. It is a controlled way to turn repeated compliance work into a documented business process with clear inputs, transparent logic, and reusable outputs.